Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It's time for Krishna book. So this is part 2 of chapter 34. Is it 34? Yes, chapter 34. The super excellent qualities of Krishna. Anyway, it's volume 2, chapter 34. And this is the summary study of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, as translated and presented in storybook form by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So this is part 2. We'll continue where we left off. A devotee is equally disposed towards the animals, the human beings, and all living entities because he sees every living entity as a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. In the Ishopanishad, it's clearly stated that one who has come to the stage of seeing all living beings equally does not hate anyone or favor anyone. The devotee does not hanker to possess more than he requires. Devotees are therefore akinchana. In any condition of life, a devotee is satisfied. It's said that a devotee is even-minded, whether he's in hell or he's in heaven. A devotee is callous to all subjects, other than his engagement in devotional service. This mode of life is the highest perfectional stage from which one can be elevated to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead. The devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are especially attracted by the highest material quality, goodness, and the qualified Brahman is the symbolic representation of this goodness. Therefore, a devotee is attached to the Brahminical stage of life. He's not very much interested in passion or ignorance, although these qualities also emanate from the Supreme Lord Vishnu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the devotees are described as Nipuna Buddhaya, which means that they are the most intelligent class of men. Uninfluenced by attachment or hatred, the devotee lives very peacefully, is not agitated by the influence of passion and ignorance. It may be questioned here why a devotee should be attached to the quality of goodness in the material world if he's transcendental to all material qualities. The answer is, there are different kinds of people existing in the modes of material nature. Those who are in the mode of goodness are called, those who are in the mode of ignorance are called Rakshasas. Those in the mode of passion are called Asuras, and those in the mode of goodness are called Suras, or demigods. Under the direction of the Supreme Lord, these 3 classes of men are created by material nature, but those who are in the mode of goodness have a greater chance to be elevated to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead. Thus, all the sages who assembled on the bank of the river Saraswati to try to determine who is the supreme predominating deity became freed from all doubts about Vishnu worship. All of them thereafter engaged in devotional service, and thus they achieved the desired result and went back to Godhead. Those who are actually anxious to be liberated from material entanglement would do better to accept at once the conclusion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said there that hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam is extremely conducive to liberation because it's spoken by Sukadeva Goswami. The same fact is again confirmed by Sutta Goswami. If anyone who is traveling aimlessly within this material world cares to hear the nectarian words spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, surely he will come to the right conclusion. Simply by discharging devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will be able to stop the fatigue of migrating from one material body to another perpetually. In other words, by proper hearing, one will become fixed in loving devotional service to Vishnu. He will certainly be able to get relief from this material journey of life, and the process is very simple. One has to give oral reception to the sweet words spoken by Sukadeva Goswami in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Another conclusion is that we should never consider the demigods, even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be on an equal level with Lord Vishnu. If we do this, then according to Padma Purana, we immediately become atheists. In the Vedic literature known as Harivamsa, it's also stated that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is to be worshipped. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or any such Vishnu mantra, is always to be chanted. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma says, "Both Lord Shiva and myself are engaged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to act in different capacities under his direction." In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's also stated that the only master is Krishna, and everyone in all categories of life are servants of Krishna only. In the Bhagavad-gītā, it's confirmed by the Lord, there is no truth superior to Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami also, in order to draw attention to the fact that among all Vishnu Tattva forms, Lord Krishna is 100% the Supreme Personality of Godhead, narrated the story of an incident which took place when Lord Krishna was present. Once upon a time, a Brahmin's wife gave birth to a child. Unfortunately, however, just after being born and touching the ground, the child immediately died. The Brahmin father took the dead child and went directly to Dwarka, the palace of the king. The Brahmin was very upset because of the untimely death of the child in the presence of his young father and mother, and his mind became very disturbed. Formerly, when there were responsible kings up to the time of Dwapara Yuga, when Lord Krishna was present, the king was liable to be blamed for an untimely death of a child in the presence of his parents. Similarly, such responsibility was there during the time of Lord Ramachandra. As we have explained in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the king was so responsible for the comforts of the citizens that he was to see that there was not even excessive heat or cold. Although there was no fault on the part of the king, the Brahmin whose child had died immediately went to the palace door and began to accuse the king as follows. The present king, Ugrasena, is envious of the Brahmins. The exact word used in this connection is Brahmadvisa, one who is envious of the Vedas, or one who is envious of a qualified Brahmin, or the Brahmin caste is called Brahmavit. So the king was accused of being Brahmavit. He was also accused of being Satadi, falsely intelligent. The executive head of state must be very intelligent to see to the comforts of the citizens. But, according to the Brahmin, the king was not at all intelligent, although he was occupying the royal throne. Therefore, he also called him Lubda, which means greedy. In other words, a king or an executive head of state should not occupy the exalted post of presidency or kingship if he's greedy and self-interested. But it is natural that an executive head becomes self-interested when he's attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, another word used here is Visayatmana. The Brahmin also accused the king of being Kshatrabandhu, which refers to a person born in the family of Kshatriyas, or the royal order who is without the qualifications of a royal personality. A king should protect Brahminical culture and should be very alert to the welfare of his citizens. He should not be greedy due to attachment to material enjoyment. If a person with no qualifications represents himself as a Kshatriya of the royal order, he is not called a Kshatriya, but a Kshatrabandhu. Similarly, if a person is born of a Brahmin father but has no Brahminical qualification, he is called Brahmabandhu or Dvijabandhu. This means that a Brahmin or Kshatriya is not accepted simply by birth. One has to qualify himself for a particular position. Only then is he accepted as a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. Thus, the Brahmin accused the king that his newly born baby was dead due to the disqualifications of the king. Brahmin took it most unnaturally, and therefore he held the king to be responsible. We also find in Vedic history that if a Kshatriya king was irresponsible, sometimes a consulting board of Brahmins maintained by the monarchy would dethrone him. Considering all these points, it appears that the post of monarch in the Vedic civilization is a very responsible one. The Brahmin therefore said, "No one should offer respects or worship to a king whose only business is envy. Such a king spends his time either hunting and killing animals in the forest or killing citizens for criminal acts. He has no self-control, possesses bad character. If such a king is worshipped or honored by the citizens, citizens will never be happy. They'll always remain poor, full of anxieties and aggrievement, and always unhappy." Although in modern politics the post of monarch is abolished, the president is not held responsible for the comforts of the citizens. In this age of Kali, the executive head of state somehow or other gets votes, is elected to an exalted post, but the condition of the citizens continues to be full of anxiety, distress, unhappiness, and dissatisfaction. The Brahmin's second child was also born dead, and the third also. He had 9 children, and each of them was born dead, and each time he came to the gate of the palace to accuse the king. When the Brahmin came to accuse the king of Dwarka for the 9th time, Arjuna happened to be present with Krishna. On hearing that a Brahmin was accusing the king of not properly protecting him, Arjuna became inquisitive and approached the Brahmin. He said, "My dear Brahmin, why do you say that there are no proper Kshatriyas to protect the citizens of your country? Is there not even someone who can pretend to be a Kshatriya, who can carry a bow and arrow, at least to make a show of protection? Do you think that all the royal personalities in this country simply engage in performing sacrifices with the Brahmins, but have no chivalrous power?" Thus, Arjuna indicated that Kshatriyas should not sit back comfortably and engage only in performing Vedic rituals. Rather, they must be very chivalrous in protecting the citizens. Brahmins, being engaged in spiritual activities, are not expected to do anything which requires physical endeavor. Therefore, they need to be protected by the Kshatriyas, so they will not be disturbed in the execution of their higher occupational duties. If the Brahmins feel unwanted separation from their wives and children, Arjuna continued, and the Kshatriya kings do not take care of them, then such Kshatriyas are to be considered no more than stage players. In dramatic performances in the theater, an actor may play the part of a king, but no one expects any benefits from such a make-believe king. Similarly, if the king or the executive head of a state cannot give protection to the head of the social structure, he's considered merely a bluffer. Such executive heads simply live for their own livelihood while occupying exalted posts as chiefs of state. My lord, I promise that I shall give protection to your children, and if I am unable to do so, then I shall enter into blazing fire, so that the sinful contamination which has infected me will be counteracted." Upon hearing Arjuna speak in this way, the Brahmin replied, "My dear Arjuna, Lord Balaram is present, but he could not give protection to my children. Lord Krishna is also present, but he could not give them protection. There are also many other heroes, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, carrying bows and arrows, but they could not protect my children." The Brahmin directly hinted that Arjuna could not do what was impossible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He felt that Arjuna was promising something beyond his power. The Brahmin said, "I consider your promise to be like that of an inexperienced child. I cannot put my faith in your promise. Arjuna then understood that the Brahmin had lost all faith in the Kshatriya kings. Therefore, to encourage him, Arjuna spoke, as if criticizing even his friend Lord Krishna. While Lord Krishna and others were listening, he specifically attacked Krishna by saying, "My dear Brahmin, I'm neither Sankarshan nor Krishna, nor one of Krishna's sons like Pradyumna or Aniruddha. My name is Arjuna. I carry the bow known as Gandiva. You cannot insult me because I have satisfied even Lord Shiva by my prowess, when we were both hunting in the forest. I had a fight with Lord Shiva, who appeared before me as a hunter, and when I satisfied him by my prowess, he gave me the weapon known as Pashupatastra. Do not doubt my chivalry. I shall bring back your sons, even if I have to fight with death personified." When the Brahmin was assured by Arjuna in such exalted words, he somehow or other was convinced, and thus he returned home. When the Brahmin's wife was to give birth to another child, the Brahmin began to chant, "My dear Arjuna, please come now, save my child." After hearing him, Arjuna immediately prepared himself by touching sanctified water and uttering holy mantras to protect his bows and arrows from danger. He specifically took the arrow which was presented to him by Lord Shiva, and while going out he began to remember Lord Shiva and his great favor. In this way he appeared in front of the maternity home, equipped with his bow known as Gandiva, and with various other weapons. It appears that Arjuna did not leave Dwarka because he had to fulfill his promise to the Brahmin. He was called at night when the Brahmin's wife was to give birth to the child. While going to the maternity home to attend to the delivery case of the Brahmin's wife, Arjuna remembered Lord Shiva and not his friend Krishna. He thought that since Krishna could not give protection to the Brahmin, it was better to take shelter of Lord Shiva. This is another instance of how a person takes shelter of the demigods. This is explained in Bhagavad-gītā. Kamaistasta rita jnana. A person who loses his intelligence because of greediness and lust, forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead, takes shelter of demigods. Of course, Arjuna was not an ordinary living entity, but because of his friendly dealings with Krishna, he thought that Krishna was unable to give protection to the Brahmin, and that he would do better to remember Lord Shiva. Later on it was proved that Arjuna's taking shelter of Lord Shiva instead of Krishna was not at all successful. Arjuna, however, did his best by chanting different mantras and took up his bow to guard the maternity home from all directions. The Brahmin's wife delivered a male child, and as usual the child began to cry, but suddenly, within a few minutes, both the child and Arjuna's arrows disappeared in the sky. It appeared that the Brahmin's house was near Krishna's residence, and Lord Krishna was enjoying everything that was taking place, apparently in defiance of his authority. It was he who played the trick of taking away the Brahmin's baby, as the arrows, including the one given by Lord Shiva, of which Arjuna was so proud. Tad bhavati alpamadasam. Less intelligent men take shelter of the demigods due to bewilderment and are satisfied with the benefits they award. In the presence of Lord Krishna and others, the Brahmin began to accuse Arjuna. "Everyone see my foolishness. I put my faith in the words of Arjuna, who is impotent and who is expert only in false promises. How foolish I was to believe Arjuna. He promised to protect my child when even Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Lord Balaram, and Lord Krishna failed. If such great personalities could not protect my child, then who can do so? I therefore condemn Arjuna for his false promise. I also condemn his celebrated bow Gandiva and his impotency in declaring himself greater than Lord Balaram, Lord Krishna, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. No one can save my child, for he has already been transferred to another planet. Due to sheer foolishness only, Arjuna thought he could bring back my child from another planet." Thus condemned by the Brahmin, Arjuna empowered himself with a mystic yoga perfection so that he could travel to any planet to find the Brahmin's baby. It seems that Arjuna had mastered the mystic yoga power by which yogis can travel to any planet they desire. He first of all went to the planet known as Yamaloka, where the superintendent of death, Yamaraj, lives. There he searched for the Brahmin's baby, but he was unable to find him. He then immediately went to the planet where the king of heaven, Indra, lives. When he was unable to find the baby there, he went to the planets of the fire demigods, Nariti, then to the moon planet, then he went to Vayu and to Varunaloka. When he was unable to find the baby in those planets, he went down to Rasatala planet, the lowest of the planetary systems. After traveling to all these different planets, he finally went to Brahmaloka, where even the mystic yogis cannot go. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Arjuna had that power, and he went above the heavenly planets to Brahmaloka. When he was unable to find the baby, even after searching all possible planets, he then attempted to throw himself into a fire, as he had promised the Brahmin, if unable to bring back his baby. Lord Krishna, however, was very kind toward Arjuna, because Arjuna happened to be the most intimate friend of the Lord. Lord Krishna persuaded Arjuna not to enter the fire in disgrace. Krishna indicated that since Arjuna was his friend, if he were to enter the fire in hopelessness, indirectly it would be a blemish on him. Lord Krishna therefore checked Arjuna, assuring him that he would find the baby. He told Arjuna, "Do not foolishly commit suicide." After addressing Arjuna in this way, Lord Krishna called for his transcendental chariot. He mounted it along with Arjuna and began to proceed north. Lord Krishna, the all-powerful Personality of Godhead, could have brought the child back without effort, but we should always remember he's playing the part of a human being. As a human being has to endeavor to achieve certain results, so Lord Krishna, like an ordinary human being, or like his friend Arjuna, left Dwarka to bring back the Brahmin's baby. By appearing in human society and exhibiting his pastimes as a human being, Krishna definitely showed that there was not a single personality greater than he. God is great. That is the definition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, at least within this material world, while he was present, Krishna proved there was no greater personality within the universe. Seated on his chariot with Arjuna, Krishna began to proceed north, crossing over many planetary systems. These are described in Srimad Bhagavatam as Saptadvip. Dvip means island. All these planets are sometimes described in the Vedic literature as dvipas. The planet on which we are living is called Jambudvip. Outer space is taken as a great ocean of air, and within that great ocean of air there are many islands, which are the different planets. In each and every planet there are oceans also. In some of the planets the oceans are salt water, in some an ocean of milk. In others there's an ocean of liquor, in others an oceans of ghee or oil. There are different kinds of mountains also. Each and every planet has a different type of atmosphere. Krishna passed over all these planets and reached the covering of the universe. This covering is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as great darkness. This material world as a whole is described as dark. In the open space there is sunlight, and therefore it's illuminated, but in the covering, because of the absence of light, it's naturally dark. When Krishna approached the covering layer of this universe, the 4 horses which were drawing his chariot, Sabya, Sugriva, Meghapushpa, and Balahak, all appeared to hesitate to enter the darkness. This hesitation is also a part of the pastimes of Lord Krishna, because the horses of Krishna are not ordinary. It is not possible for ordinary horses to go all over the universe and then enter into its outer covering layers. As Krishna is transcendental, similarly his chariot and his horses, and everything about him is also transcendental, beyond the qualities of this material world. We should always remember that Krishna is playing the part of an ordinary human being, and his horses also, by the will of Krishna, played the parts of ordinary horses in hesitating to enter the darkness.